what's up? Rafael Cortez back on the CEO Pulse podcast, where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. We are sitting down with one of my Latino heroes over here. This is Omar Robles, the owner of Next Gen Realty. He founded this company back in 2013, went through the pains of and struggles of growing that business up to now. Right now, I think you're one of the biggest brokerages in the valley. With a predominant market, right? As far as the tapping into a Latino market, and I think it's a really cool niche what you've been able to find and craft. Now you're pretty active in social media. There's a couple of different ways that you've come up about expanding and growing your actual business. So I want to tap into that stuff. I want to tap into your background, your story, and then I also want to squeeze some golden nuggets out of you. I mean, what does it take to get to the point where you're having and rolling in a successful business and creating this life by design? Where you're able to travel, play golf. I see the pictures, bro.
It's a small percentage of it, though. You know that. That's a small percentage of it.
The highlights, right? But the tenacity and the grit is it's undisputed, right? You can't get around it. So bring it back, man. Bring it back. Tell us about your story, how you got started as an entrepreneur, and how you got from point A to point B.
Well, first off, I'm born and raised here in Phoenix, so I as a kid, we didn't have a stable home. We moved a lot. That's what poverty does. You just fucking move.
Yeah.
I mean, are we allowed to curse on your show?
You're good.
Well, just because I felt the F-bomb go, but they just come out. They just come out, and it's just part of the vocabulary.
I've dropped a few, no
okay.
sweats.
All right, just want to make sure we can just truly be ourselves. But, as far as poverty, you move around a lot. And that was just my childhood, just moving and just constantly on the move. And where I grew up, I went to Carl Hayden High School, so that's in the West Valley. We lived in South Phoenix, but again, we moved around a lot. So the only thing that was constant was like, hey, I go to Carl Hayden, but just depending on where we lived, I'd have to take a different bus maybe, or get a ride or whatnot.
So you stayed somewhat in the area, but we're still moving around.
Well, more in South Phoenix. We lived in South Phoenix. I should have actually went to South Mountain High School, but just because of where I graduated from in 8th grade, I had to go to Carl Hayden. So a lot of my friends actually went to South Mountain. And when we actually moved to the South Mountain District, I could have transferred and went to South Mountain, but I ended up staying at Carl Hayden. So I made great friends there, stayed there, born and raised there. And as far as, entrepreneurship or just trying to identify those things, I always felt like I was creative, more than anything. Not really entrepreneurial in a sense where I'm trying to sell. But I was always creative. And what I mean by that is I would take the T-shirts, right? T-shirts, I played ball, so we'd always rip the sleeves off, right?
Yeah.
And go lift, right? Go get it. But what do you do with all those leftover sleeves, right? So I had this thing. So I started making, like, beanie hats, and selling them at school. So we'd have different colors, right? I'd have different colors, and I would make, hats out of the sleeves, and people would buy them. And then I'd have, one of my friends, she would, cut little strings, and we would start designing them, right? Just all by hand. We didn't have any machines or nothing, all by hand.
Straight up side hustle. Yeah.
Straight up side hustle. So it's not like I was walking around with hundreds of beanie hats, just the shirts that we would my friends, hey, give me your sleeves. So I'd take their sleeves. So some people have big arms and some have small arms. So naturally we'd have different sizes, right? So I remember doing that. I remember selling candy. Selling other things, but I just never fell into that either. It wasn't for me, right? And that's a trap that a lot of people fall into because when you're younger and you're poor, it's you don't want to be poor.
Yeah.
It's everybody wants, it's just a natural instinct we have just to get ahead. So if anything, I was always more creative with what I would do and how I would do it, and things would just happen. So that's kind of the start for me. Yeah.
Man, I see a pattern with a lot of people that I get to sit down. I have the pleasure of sitting down with, but there's always a pattern, right? There's you have some are just wired for tenacity and the bottom line, the end result. But one thing that kind of is consistent across the board is the creative side, either creativity in doing something out of nothing or seeing opportunity where others don't. And then having that bug, all right, cool, I'm going to do something with it. Not just, keeping the knowledge inside your head, but actually applying it somehow, some way. I mean, taking the excess just sleeves out of a t-shirt and making money out of that. I mean, that's genius. It's not my not the path that I took. I know.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So how does that evolve? Right. So you grow up in the West Valley, and then years go by. How do you figure out that I mean, fast forward. How do you figure out you wanna start your own business, and more importantly, I mean, it's you said it was kind of like the natural thing to do, right? People want to get out of that space.
Right.
But it's one thing to want to get out of of poverty and out of the struggle, right? Another thing is to bet on yourself and actually do it and do it the right way.
Right.
So what do you think was the defining factor right there for you?
I was just always one of these kids, growing up, that I just didn't follow the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
I just, as much as people might laugh at me or think that's stupid, like, I just didn't care. I didn't listen to them.
That's the
I
best.
learned to have my blinders on from
Okay.
from a young age.
Caliente.
I learned to have my blinders on at a young age, so I just didn't pay attention to that stuff. And yeah, it makes you feel a certain way when you hear things, but like, for whatever reason, I just didn't care.
Yeah.
Like, as far as, it didn't bother me to a degree where I didn't want to do it anymore.
Mm.
So for me, it was, I just always knew that whatever's for the masses, I just felt like I didn't want to go along a lot of things. When I say the masses, I'm talking about a lot of friends growing up and whatnot. And I just wouldn't follow them down every road. So for me, it was just trying to stick to what I felt good about, right? And that's what worked for me, and that kept me out of a lot of situations. So, at the oh, there we go.
That's crazy.
Oh, that is dope.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, look, like you hold on to it. Sorry.
So
Carry-
it just that was just me growing up. As a
Yeah.
kid, is I just never. I would do my own thing. I would just do my own thing. I wouldn't follow everybody.
You know what, man? I think that's huge right there. For me, I know that did not register until probably my late 20s, and that was, I mean, because I put myself on an island practically.
Right.
Started my own business, and I disconnected from all my friends. And then I'm sitting there thinking one day, like, what the fuck? Like, what makes sense to me?
Right.
What do I like? What feels good to me?
Right.
That question. When it did down on me, it made an impact, made a change, right? But it didn't register when I was younger, when I was in high school and through college, and I was, I mean, to me, I wish I could say otherwise, but I was not the exception. That I wasn't that kid that saw it and okay, cool, this is me being an individual. Like, no, if there was something fun happening and the whole crowd was in it, I would just gravitate towards and then what happened, the secondary effect of something like that is that you stop to think for yourself unless you're caught again. Like, unless somehow, some way, something brings you back to awareness. But that happened to me, right? So going with the flow of things. And I remember, being in places or putting myself in situations where, like, what the hell is going on? This is not me, but I was already in it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't even realize I was doing the stuff that I wasn't enjoying.
Right.
But I did not have the awareness that you had, growing up.
and growing up, I didn't have my mom was a single mother, 5 kids, so my father wasn't around, so I never had a male figure. I feel is very important for somebody's development, right?
Yeah.
Because your mother's going to give you love. Most mothers, right? There's some hard, there's some great mothers out there that have the disciplinary thing as well, but my mother was more like most mothers, just loving and nurturing and caring, and hey, make sure you have your food, make sure you have your clothes, and out the door. So I never had that, growing up. And yeah, I had tios and uncles and everything, but I was that kid that they just didn't like everything I did. So I would cut my hair a certain way, I didn't care. I would dress a certain way, I didn't care, right? You know what it's like to be from a Mexican family where del rancho, de la sierra, wear your boots, tuck your shirt in, right? That was just our culture, but I didn't gravitate towards that as a kid, and that was something that wasn't really instilled in me. So, growing up, I just didn't have anybody that I could like lean on or get information. So I like honestly, I just had to figure out everything for the most part myself.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's a lot of times. I mean, I think we end up we have this battle between nurture and and nature, right? Like when as we grow up, where do we pick up our habits? Where do we pick up our grit, our tenacity? And I see that often with entrepreneurs, right? It's yeah, I think some of it comes in because of the cultural background and then just innate, right? But a lot of it, a great part of it, it's gonna be derived from the environment that you're in.
Right.
And if you're in a place where you have to be competitive. You have to think outside the box to get shit figured out. Guess what's gonna happen as you grow? That same thought process becomes a habit, and now you have the same approach to things.
Right.
Right. Hence, you end up with a good, successful entrepreneurship future, and you have people in place and whatnot, and yeah, but I think the glorified idea of having a business, it's a lot of times it's taken out of context. People think it's easier said than done.
Oh, no.
Right now, I was cracking the joke about seeing you golfing and everything, and yeah, those are
I'm terrible.
tho-
I'm a
those
terrible
are-
golfer, by the way.
bro. When I go golfing, all I do is drink. Like
Well, it's an experience, right?
That's my golfing expertise. But no, it's those are the highlights, right? There's a lot of work. There's hours upon hours of highs and lows that are some of the lowest lows you're ever gonna see as you're building your business. And it doesn't matter if it's if you start off with even with funding. There's so many different challenges that come across. The mental aspect, on the financial aspect, on the I don't know what the fuck to do aspect.
Right.
What's the next step type of deal.
Right.
How did you get across all of that stuff?
I honestly, I'm just not afraid of risk. I'm not afraid to lose. I'm not afraid to win, right?
Yeah.
And I think you have to be more afraid of just not trying, right? Of not doing it. So for me, the trick has always been, and I don't know if it was something that I picked up in the military, or if it's just something that has always been with me, but the trick for me is just don't lose your enthusiasm, right? In the sense that and we have Teddy here. He's our broker. He's here watching.
So Teddy.
Teddy Castro, designated broker, Next Gen Real Estate. My right hand, my partner, and one of the things that we talk about is you get a win, right?
Yeah.
Cool, right? Cool,
Yeah.
right? You lose, fuck. All right,
Move on. Shake it
move
up.
on. And the trick is like to stay even keel. Right? You don't celebrate because you can lose it all like that, whatever it is, or you can gain it all like that. Shit happens quick. And that's always been something that, for whatever reason, I don't know how in the hell I'm wired like that. So it's kind of a gift and a curse, meaning when there's a big win, I don't get too happy.
Yeah.
Right? When there's a loss, okay. Like I don't get too
You
down
don't
on
get too
myself.
sad.
No.
You hold a happy
No,
medium.
because it's always like there's always something around the corner, right?
Yeah.
And it's like we can't always prepare for those things, right? But one thing you can like do is like try to control your emotions, and we're all wired differently. And that's been like my biggest, ally, right? And as being an entrepreneur, because everybody thinks entrepreneurship is about money.
Yeah.
It's about net worth. It's not. It's about relationships, in my opinion.
The money's a byproduct.
The relationships is where your equity is. And if you treat enough people right, if you make enough people feel special and valuable, then everything else will come along with it. And the trick to it all, if you want to call it a trick, is you have to be authentic about it. Your people have to know that, like,
This guy's
if
real.
you're going to eat shit, I'm going to eat shit with you, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to eat, crab legs, I'm going to eat crab legs with you, right? So it's just about being in tune and being in sync and being authentic. So, however that was created, through life experiences, because it's the experiences, right, that mold us. And you have to have some type of like empathy, right, towards people, towards humanity, in my opinion. And it doesn't mean that you're the nicest person in the world. It's just like, hey, you try to be as fair as you can, and you got to be fair with yourself, right? You can't beat yourself up over things, because we don't control many things, to be honest with you, right? We take advantage of opportunities. Sometimes we create opportunities, and sometimes we fuck up opportunities, right? So it's just it's hard to explain how it all comes together, right? But a lot of it has to do with like how you treat people, in my opinion.
100%, man. 100%. I think we're at a stage of life where we're, as a society, right? It matters. And money matters. There's, living, politics and everything aside, right? Economy and just all those factors that are just in play right now, which is crazy. But if you leave all that aside, money matters. If you go to a place of business, you go to get paid. You want to get reimbursed for your efforts. Yeah, but I think now we are at a stage where who you do business with, and having a sense of meaning and belonging in that space means just as much.
Right.
I see that more often, and more and more as the new generations come into the workplace. Money matters again, but you know what? I want to matter, not just the financial aspect of things.
And it's very important also. Like if you're a young entrepreneur, like in this age of social media, that we've been in, and I'm considered Gen X, right? Generation X. And, we were lucky enough to be like that last generation that played on the street and our bikes, right? And we were also the first generation to start computers, right? Start playing with video games. So I think just Generation X, we're just kind of wired a little differently, just the way we see the world. And, as far as being an entrepreneur and being successful, like that level of empathy, right? As far as knowing how to treat people, and it's not an easy balance, right? Because no matter who you are or what you do, half the people are going to hate you anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what? If nobody hates you, you're not doing enough.
You're not doing enough, and that's just how things naturally play out.
Yeah. No, and you're completely right, man. I think we have just a bit of a
point
different...
before I forget, I'm sorry. With these new kids, what I was trying to get to, just sometimes I go off and talking and short-term memory. I don't know if like explosions like jarred me or whatnot. But as far as like the younger guys coming up, the younger entrepreneurs, Gen Z, I think they call them, or millennials and whatnot. Because I'm 44 years old, so I'm almost to half a century. But it seems like a lot of the younger kids coming up is they don't know how, or they don't understand the value of earning your keep, right? Yeah. Of coming in and learning and shutting the fuck up and learning. Ask your questions, but you'll figure it out, right? You don't be in a rush. You're not going to walk through the door in a week be a fucking CEO. It doesn't happen. I've been in real estate for 18 years. I've had the company for 8 years. We ate a lot of shit the first, 3 years of having the company.
It's rite of passage, brother. It's digging the trench.
So it's just like you have to earn your keep. You have to show your value, and you have to contribute. And that's the biggest thing I can say to all the younger people coming up is like, don't be in such a fucking rush to make money, but be in a rush to make great relationships. That's what you need to focus on.
Yeah. I love it, man. 100%. You're completely right. Again, I think now the at least where I've seen the most success is, or happen in my experiences, where when I don't focus on the cash. The more and more I was focused on the money and the revenue, I would hit that mark, but it would stop there. And anytime I just come in and from a with a solution-based mentality and coming in, help people out, build relationships and connect and do something outside of just the monetary reward, the returns are just they're a lot bigger.
Right. and then partnerships too, right? Yeah. Partnerships are tough. Yeah. Like, partners, they do matter. They do matter, but also know that it's hard to find a good partner. So partnerships are tough.
Well, partnership.
Don't be in a rush.
Anytime you partner up with anybody, even if it's, for example, we have in one of the companies that I own, we do a lot of JV partnerships, but those are on one-off deals, right?
Right.
we come into it, even if it's a temporary partnership like that, we come into it with a mentality that we're going to marry this person for the next, 3 months if it's a rehab or whatever. Like, what is that going to look like, right? You have to do your due diligence, not just partner up because, I don't know, that person has cash. Like, yeah. No. But does the attitude, match? Do you guys jive together? Are you able to create something really cool? Or both, does he complement your weaknesses or she, you know what I mean? Or can you guys, collaborate first off, or it's going to be like a one-way street? Partnerships in that sense, they can be so complicated. One thing that you mentioned earlier was having a different perspective. Because of the I'm a child of the 80s. I'm 38, so I saw that, growing up in the 90s and going to high school and graduating early 2000. I got to see the work ethic, right, from my mom. Mom's a single parent. Her work ethic was just unmatched, dude. Like crazy. The lady was at work all the time, and as soon as she was off, she was, with the family and then cooking and doing all that stuff. And then I thought it was a normal thing. Right. In my head, it registered as a normal thing. Like, okay, that's what you do when you're and like in my head, like every household only had a mom. Like that's how I grew up thinking, right? But as you grow older, you get to see that, and then there comes a point where you start to appreciate that. Like, holy shit, my mom was going through all of this stuff, and it kind of helps you see the value, right, in that work ethic. So I think that we were, just because of the timeline, right, we were exposed to a very good work ethic. You're talking timeline and cultural background. Work ethic, like, yeah, we're gonna work and then we're gonna get this small amount of cash, paid to us and whatnot, and that's how we create a living. We got to play with computers. We saw that, that expanded. But now I go back and I think about, the mobile home where I grew up and like all the struggles. Now that I realize there were struggles that my mom was going through, it's like, holy shit, and I have all this opportunity. Like, I'm not going to squander it by, having a heightened sense of entitlement. Like, no, if I got to do the trench work, I'm going to do the trench work. Right. And I think there's a lack of awareness to a point, to a degree, right? In that sense, I'm not saying that newer generations don't have work ethic, or younger generations don't have the work ethic. They don't have what it takes to kind of understand it. But I think it's more so of a lack of perspective or awareness. Okay, this is how it used to be. And it doesn't have to be that way anymore, right? We have more tools, more technology. There's easier ways of doing stuff. But the trench work and the learning curve, the learning process still has to be, one of the things that is respected. Why? Because it's going to give you the thicker skin. It's going to give you the work ethic that, we're striving for. The principles that you're going to follow. You pick them up along the way. Like, it's not something that you read in a book and then, okay, I'm going to operate with, integrity the rest of my life. Like, no, it's some shit that you learn and you absorb it. You take it in.
Perspective is everything, and Teddy knows this. I say this all the time. Perspective, is everything, because what somebody feels is a curse, somebody might think it's a blessing. Yeah. So perspective is everything, like I said. And just growing up, for quite some time, I would kind of use the oh, well, this is how I grew up, so this is just kind of why things are the way they are, right? Mm-hmm. And so, using your upbringing as a crutch, and I don't want to say people don't go through horrible things, because they do. I don't, people go through terrible experiences, as kids that, may sometimes just, like, totally, like, screw them, right? There's a lot of traumatizing situations. Yeah. And growing up, I, had, situations like that, but just going to the Army, right? I was in the Army for 4 years, so I went to the 101st Airborne, so I was an infantryman. And
thank you for your service, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome. And in 4 years, I was deployed a lot. I was in the 101st Airborne. I was a Rakkasan, very proud of that. And for the people that know, they know, right? Rakkasan's very prestigious, hard-charging unit. And just experiences as far as being deployed to places like Haiti, Kosovo, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Macedonia, and just seeing all these different regions of the world. It's just like, holy smokes, like, I had it easy as a kid. Like, when and of course, right? It's just perspective, and it's easier to say it now that you're older, right? when you're young, you just know that, hey, sucks, right? And it's
Yeah.
going on, but just timing is everything. And so for me, whenever and the more successful you get, you're asked to speak and to come do different things. And one thing, people like, hey, tell us about your story. Tell us about your story. And my story is, one that a lot of people can relate to as far as poverty, single mother, and all that stuff. But I never that's not my fuel anymore. It hasn't been my fuel for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. And with that said, perspective is the most important thing, I think, for anybody to look at, because we have it, I'm not going to say easy in this country. We don't. We have it good, right?
Yeah.
And we have a lot of opportunity. Regardless of who you are, there's opportunity.
Yeah.
So for me, that's always been a very, very, that's a very, very important and impactful word, is perspective. And I use it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and you're completely right, man. I think we're sitting in a hotbed of possibilities. And this is in the U.S., right? We do have. We may complain, and I'll speak for myself every time I say we, but sometimes complain about what's happening in this, what's happening in there, or this new regulation just
And
passed,
it's important stuff. Yeah, it's important stuff.
But at the end of the day, we have the ability to complain about that stuff. We have the ability to make a choice, right? Whether we stay on the path or we move to something else that matches our purpose a little more. We have the ability to have a purpose. I mean, how fucking awesome is that? Yeah. It's and actually implement that kind of stuff. Right. So I think, if you kind of bring it into full perspective, is we are sitting in a place that gives us the ability to create opportunities.
Yeah.
They may not be sitting there just waiting for you to stumble upon them, but if you sit there with yourself and you think about it and you put some effort into it, I think you're gonna have the connection that you need to have. You're gonna meet somebody who's gonna take you to that next step. Right. If you put one foot in front of the other, you're gonna find something that inevitably it's gonna lead to a different set of opportunities. So I'll use, for example, real estate. We're both in real estate, right? I see this all the time. How many agents do you know that, oh, you know what, I have no idea what to do, I'm just gonna get my license? Cool. Low barrier to entry. They get a license, and they do a couple of transactional, or I'm sorry, just retail transactions. They come in, and then now they have some cash in their pockets, right? The next opportunity is, oh, you know what? I'm seeing this person that wants to sell this property. I'm going to do a flip. So now they're flipping that property. Okay, cool. I've seen people go to that progression, right? From real estate agent to flipping, eventually getting to the end of the opportunity of hard money lending or developing and all kinds of stuff, man. I mean, you just jump from one to the other when you're in that train of action. I mean, you have to implement at the end of the day, right? Right. Yeah. So the mindset wise. Let me take it back. You started, the brokerage in 2013. Was that right after you got out of the military, or?
No, I got out of the military in 2002. 2002. So August 2002, and I was home, done with my service. I wasn't planning on cutting my hair for a while. Actually, I didn't. I didn't cut my hair for 3 years, and I called my tia. Yeah. And she was just a great tia growing up. And, I worked for her at Rowley's Hamburgers. I was a cashier, at the drive-thru and whatnot. Yeah. So I loved my tia very much. And I hadn't been home in 2 years. I just didn't come home. There was nothing for me to come home to. So I wanted to save up my leave so I can get out early. So I called her, and we were going to have lunch. She picked me up. And the next day, I'm in real estate school. She was doing it's because she was doing real estate now. Yeah. She was in the fast food industry, and then during the time I was gone, she had gotten into real estate, and she kicked ass. She was probably selling about 4 or 5 homes a month, and mind you, this was before e-fax and real email, and she was doing carbon copy stuff, right? So she would send me to the board to go pick up carbon copy. Like, mijo, I need a stack of contracts. Like, okay, going to the board to get me a stack of contracts, right? And
none of that e-signature bullshit.
No, it was all just by hand. So some offers wouldn't get accepted. So guess what? It's like, all right, well, let's use another contract, right? Yeah. So you get the yellow, I get the pink, and they get the white one, right? So she was a hustler to that degree. Mm-hmm. And just the technology kind of left her behind. She just didn't adapt, unfortunately. As far as, coming into the business, she's the one that got me, into the business as far as, talking about like the mindset and everything. So she's the one that got me into the business, and it wasn't something I planned on doing, right? So I got my license. That was the first thing that I did when I got out of the military.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was part-time for a couple of years, and then we know what happened, 2004 or 5, the market just went bananas. Thank you, all the subprime products out there,
Oh
all
my
the
God.
80-20s, all the 80-20s.
Don't get me talking about
100%.
adjustable arms.
And
Oh,
it
Jesus.
was just a different, environment back then. But she's the one that got me into real estate.
Yeah.
And then so I was a top producer for a number of years. And then the market crashed, of course, just like everybody else. I went from taking my checks to the bank to go cash them to like, shit, I need a job. Like, are you guys hiring? Like, nope. Oh, what's your background, sir? Oh, I'm a realtor. Yeah, we're okay. We're good. So they just weren't hiring, right? So it was just funny how that dynamic
skill set level
works.
was 0, pretty much, as far as they were concerned.
The where, probably. So, what I did, just like any other, realtor at the time, is like, hey, like, I'm going to scratch and claw. And
Yeah.
I ended up doing a bunch of BPOs. I did a ton of BPOs, and I learned how to do short sales.
Yeah.
So that's what kept me in business. And we actually got really good at that. I was doing a ton of BPOs, ton of short sales. And then, we decided, hey, a friend of mine at the time, I said, hey, I want to open a brokerage. I just want to open a real estate company. Like, why? I just want to open one. I just wanted to open one. So we opened Next Gen in 2013. And, just personal things happen. And we were pretty stagnant for about 3 years, almost closed our doors a couple times. And, next thing you know, it's like I wasn't very active on social media. So that was like the first biggest mistake, just not being active on social media. And, buddy of mine, him, Carlos Reyes, friend of mine,
Yeah.
This was years ago.
Good dude.
When, he was, first getting going in his business, him and Sal, I met them at the very beginning and whatnot. So, he would always give me shit. Like, dude, you're not on social media. You're not on, like, you don't exist. And I'm like, shut the fuck up, dude. I'm good. We're underground. Like, you're underground, all right. You're about to go even more underground.
Yeah.
So, he would just, like every now and again, he'd just bring it up. Like, hey, man, like, you're still not on social media, and like, so finally I got back on Facebook, and it's a funny thing because we talk about this all the time, Teddy and I, because when you have a real estate company, right, the word that you hear is recruiting. You have to recruit. But, the funny thing that we discovered is, for us, it's more attracting. Right? Attracting people. So just from 2016, when we got back on Facebook, like, people would reach out like, hey, man, I like what you guys are doing. Or, hey, like, can we sit down and talk? And so it just, like, we've grown pretty much organically, for the most part. We are in the schools now. We did our first career expo, right? It went really well.
Nice.
So we did it in August. So that went well. So we're actually starting to recruit now, but we still look at it more as like an attraction, right? Because our real estate company isn't for everybody. We're not corporate. We like to have fun. We've all sold homes, which is great. You can go to a real estate company and you can meet the most professional people who've learned all the principles, know all the rules to do, not to, right? How to buy the book, right? How to be a pro. And we're not corporate, but you know what? We're very serious about what we do. And people gravitate towards that.
Yeah.
And so that's how we've grown, is like people want to be part of that, because I feel like we have something special and something organic at our brokerage that you're not going to find anywhere else. You're not going to find it anywhere else. It's a fun group. We have almost 200 realtors now, and we're still growing. I have a commercial team now. So we got into the commercial space, and most of our business is done in Spanish. Most of our agents are bilingual. Our commercial team, our niche is, Latino client. And that's just, as far as, how that all happened, right? And there's more to it, of course, but it's just along the way, just people come into your life, right? And they're supposed to come into your life, and not everybody's supposed to stay, and not everybody stays, right? But, things just happen, and I tell you what, like, I've just been very blessed, fortunate to have like some amazing people that, you almost feel like, hey, man, we belong together, right?
Yeah.
So, we have Teddy here. Teddy's a guy, I met in real estate. I had known about him, but we had never met before. So I know Teddy had been in the game for about as long as I had. And you always hear the names, right? And you see the names. When you're in the industry, you see the names on the listings and the deals and whatnot.
Yep.
So you know who the players are, right? So I met Teddy at a NARP. I was invited to a NARP meeting, and so I went to the meeting, met Teddy there, and we just clicked really well. And around the same time, I met Jorge Quijada. It was around the same exact time. I met Jorge. He was at another brokerage, but he was looking to make a change. Had a team with him, and we met at a Starbucks on 7th Avenue and McDowell. At the Starbucks, and we clicked really well too. So Jorge is like a very, he's a key component as well. And there's other people as well, but I'm just talking about like the immediate, they call us the big three, right?
The big three?
Well, Bianca does, our assistant, she does. But, and there's other people too, like Christina Lozada and JC Acosta, Frank Navarro, and, Jessica and, Carb Daddy. And I can go on. And I don't want to keep saying names because I'm going to forget somebody. And they're gonna be pissed off, right? Or they'll give me shit, for a little bit.
You know what? But what you're doing right now, I mean, that speaks to the character, of the culture of the business.
Right.
It speaks to the type of person that you are, as far as acknowledging, as far as being authentic and really, seeing things as a team,
Right.
Being generated by a team, not this up and down type of structure
by themselves, And,
absolutely.
And everybody and it's great because everybody has a big heart, for the community, right?
Yeah.
So we're able to do things that a lot of brokerages don't do, like a lot of grassroots things, and everybody likes to give back during the holidays. We do too.
Yeah.
It feels good. The time is right. But we do things throughout the year, and we don't really highlight a whole lot of it because we're not chasing clout with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just like to do it because it's the right thing to do. It's like, hey, the community is supporting us by purchasing homes and real estate, and let's give back. So the Arellano brothers too, I can't forget them. Carlos and Jorge Arellano, they're my commercial partners, and they have just great character as well, giving back, community. And it's funny because you meet each other, you like each other, hey, let's work together. And then you start discovering, like, holy smokes, we have a lot in common, right? So it's just that attraction, right? It just happens, man. It just happens. Like, we've all been part, of situations where, let's just say, just magic sometimes happens, right? You could be at a club, right? And there's like, beautiful women or however you roll, whatever you like, right? And then all of a sudden you lock eyes with somebody, right? And it's just like, okay, you can't explain it. It just happens, right?
The click.
It just happens. And that's just been a great thing about like our company is just, just the attraction component. So we have a very good retention, rate. And I always have this habit of knocking on stuff just from the 90s, knocking on wood.
Knocking wood, yeah. What do you think I got a wood
table?
table?
It just feels like the juju all like resets
Cleans
itself.
out, yeah.
It just resets, the juju reset. Right?
Yeah.
And so as far as just meeting the right people along the road, because everybody has a different role. Like I don't do everything. Like Teddy's the hammer, right?
Yeah.
Teddy is the hammer. Teddy's the technical guy. Teddy knows, all the dynamics as far as the transaction go, right?
Yeah.
Jorge is the execution guy, right? He's the strategy guy. He's the systems guy, right? Because you got to have all that shit.
Absolutely,
right?
man. But freedom is in the systems.
And I'm like the visionary, I guess. I just like, okay, I know where we got to go, right? And so does everybody else. But it's like, okay, we all are gonna work to get to where we see. But that's just kind of how, our that's our dynamic, right? And I think a lot of companies, for anybody that wants to grow a company or scale, it's like if you think you're the end all be all, if you think it can't happen without you, that's your first mistake, right? And that's the deadliest mistake you can make because everybody's replaceable, including myself.
And I love it. I love the fact that you think that way. The saying "self-made." I'm self-made. Every time I hear that, I think it's a ton of bullshit. Self-made. I don't think anybody's self-made. I mean, you picked up habits, you picked up traits, you picked up ethic, you picked up, partnerships, you picked up
give
people.
Yourself the credit, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, exactly. I mean, you have the tenacity, but there's always, other factors that play into it. And the fact that you're seeing the company as a whole, I mean, it's an organic model what you have, right? It's not a top down thing.
We're not gonna, and I knew this, and I still know this now, is I'm not gonna outspend anybody, right? I don't want to outspend anybody, but I'll try to outthink you. I'll try to be creative.
Yeah.
I will use what I can to be better than you, right?
Yeah.
And it's not always about what I can offer you, right? It's about, what you feel you're going to benefit, right? It's just, it works for us. It works a totally different way. Like, we're not going to outspend any of these big brokerages. I'm not going to go out there and hire this person, that like we don't have that board of directors. We don't have shareholders. We don't have any of this stuff.
It's not in the.
But we will outthink you. At least we will do what's within our means, right?
Yeah.
So.
And that's the thing. Picking your track, man. I mean, when you know what your model stands for, you know what, you pick your headaches, bro. Like, at the end of the day, we have the ability to pick our headaches while we're in business, right? There are certain things that we decide not to tap into. They may be profitable, but you know what? It's more than, I'm not interested in that. It's not my vision. It's going to put us in a different vibe. It's going to put us in a different, just track altogether. So you set it aside. Understanding the DNA of your business, which is, I think, one of the things that you do really, really good. Is a key. It's one of the X factors that any owner, any person running any business needs to have, right? Understanding the DNA of your not necessarily the process or the model, but the people inside of it,
right?
And that's huge. I mean, I'm picking up a pattern here of being consistent, and then steady and persistent throughout the years,
right?
I was having a conversation with a really good friend of mine not too long ago, and we were talking about consistency and persistency. And the thing that came up was like, she says, I don't have any special talents. I honestly think I'm mediocre at a bunch of stuff. Like, at most of what I do, it's just mediocre. The one talent I have is being consistent, being persistent. And I'm thinking there, like, no, you're so talented. Like, you have a lot of shit going on. But I mean, she kept going back to this point. And after a while, I was like, man, I mean, that is a talent, being consistent, being persistent. And I mean, you're seeing it right from your high school years, brother, when you're making beanies out of T-shirts, to thinking outside the box, right? Finding opportunity where there's not. I think that's one of the reasons too that the culture that you've been able to put together in the business has been so successful. You have this ability, definitely a visionary mindset of outthinking, of seeing, what's around the curve. If that's the case, but people gravitate towards that, right? People gravitate, people see it, people acknowledge it, and they're like, okay, cool. That's a space where I want to be in.
Right.
Yeah, I love it, man.
And that's just how our brokerage is, and the truth is that's how the makeup of the people at the brokerage are, and it just multiplies, it just magnifies and multiplies that sentiment, throughout. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of top producers, a lot of great agents at our company, and there's always ego, right?
Yeah.
You're a top dog, you got to have some ego, right? Like, in a sense. What's great, about the egos that we manage for the most part is a lot of them are helpful. Right, to where you can go into a place and maybe no one to talk to. And that's one of the biggest compliments I've gotten from other agents that have come over from bigger brokerages, right? And I'm not going to say better brokerages, but bigger, brokerages, to where you go in there, you just never feel like there could be 1,000 agents in there, right? And you feel like you connect with nobody.
Yeah.
Right? And then you come into a place like Next Gen and you feel like people are helpful. People are willing to share information. People are willing to give opportunities. They're not going to give you their cake, right? But here's the recipe, right? Yeah. This is how I made it, right? Like, do you want to maybe go to the store and go find some flour for me? Meaning, like, in a sense, like, hey, I have some leads. Maybe you might want to call me on some leads. Maybe there's an open house you can do, even though we don't. There a lot of open houses don't happen anymore. But the market's shifting, which is great. Yeah. Going back into more, it's been slowing down. We've been seeing counter offers. We've been seeing 2 or 3 counter offers,
bro,
on offers. Like, that's when I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Right? Because it's a great fucking thing when people can negotiate.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like when it was a seller's market, it was just so like unilateral. Like here, take it or leave
Yeah,
it.
you want it?
Everybody wants it.
The prom
Like
queen.
I
You're
don't
trying
give
to
a
get the
shit. Take
prom
my
queen.
firstborn. Like, yep, you live there for a year for
I'll
free.
pay-
I don't
take
care.
my firstborn and I'll pay their college
I'll
too.
pay your
like-
closing costs. Like, dude, we've seen some shit. Moving
Yeah.
expenses. You know, just like
100%.
we've seen some creative shit. But what I love about what we're seeing now, 2-3 counter offers. All right, let's, and now we're getting back to, what
Yeah.
we're supposed to do. And there's a lot of factors there, so we don't have to dive deep into that. But I just love that the market is like, our markets are always extreme. But, it's kind of like, hey, we're getting back to a good place of negotiating. And that's always great.
Yep, I mean we stay on top of the fluctuations, the ups and downs, and everything. Just because I play in both, right? I have the brokerage, and then we also have the real estate investment company. So we're doing. I mean, we're always on it, running comps and doing this and doing that. Like the fact that you're able to see 2 or 3 more listed properties around the same one that you're looking at, that's a blessing right now. Like
more inventory. It's just
Yeah.
it's a real estate's always in my opinion, it's just the foundation of everything.
Brother, it's a perfect vehicle. I think I keep talking about that. Like it's people ask me, why did I pick real estate? First off, I didn't choose the thug life. The thug life chose me.
Right. That's just kind of how it happens, right?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of fell upon real estate, and then doing my first flip, and then one thing led to the other. I started wholesaling after that, and then I ended up getting my real estate license, and then I put the brokerage. But I see it as probably the best vehicle that's approachable, right? Like you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank to create a successful business if you have the work ethic, tenacity, and and you're just smart about it. You come into it with a vision. With that being said, real estate is a great vehicle. Not necessarily from the I play in it from different standpoints. As far as coaching, and then I have the businesses and all that stuff. But it's not. People think that real estate is just the transactions. Like, you got to take care of spots. You got to take. No, there's so many other different ways to play in the space of real estate, and use it as a vehicle. But I mean, it's a beautiful way to level up to that next stage per se, if that's what you're looking for.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I love it. It's so the path that you've taken. It's your story is starting from humble beginnings, and I can completely relate. And then just growing, and getting to a point where you see the ups, and then you see the lows.
It doesn't get easier. That's the thing about like success, right? However we define it, right? Greatness, however you define it, but anytime you start growing in anything, right, there's always challenges. So it's not something that you're always prepared for, but it doesn't get easier. Put it like that. But it gets more rewarding, I believe. Definitely gets more rewarding, but it doesn't get easier. But you have to be built for that. You got to have the right people around you too.
It doesn't get easier, but I feel like we get better along the way.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
We should.
Yeah, it's not, and I heard that, don't pray for things to get easier, pray for you to get better. I heard that like a long time ago. It just resonated.
Right.
I don't know. It was a meme or something, right? Like
sure.
sometimes
I
you
love
find
memes.
some like insightful shit on
Right.
on Instagram and
Right.
Facebook.
Some little hottie that just shares like usually thirst trap pics, and all of a sudden she hits you with something deep. Like,
she's enlightened.
Yeah, she's enlightened.
What the fuck? Yeah, man. But sometimes they land. But that did, right? And it makes so much sense. It's as we go, we don't have to have everything figured out right out of the gate. Just have some, type of direction, some path, and know that you can bet on yourself.
Right.
It's one of the biggest.
Just don't be afraid, man. Just it's okay to like have fear, right?
Yeah.
We all fear things, but just don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Right. Don't be afraid of like falling down. It all starts like when you're a kid, right? You're riding a bike.
Yeah.
Like, if you learn to ride, like, you're gonna fall a few times.
Here's the thing about fear, man. It truncates creativity. Clarity in thinking.
Mm-hmm.
If you're afraid, you're not gonna think.
Right.
That's and I mean, you might as well be dead.
Right. Right. Because fear.
I don't want to sound so
fight or flight,
dramatic.
fear, fight or flight. You know, it's like you got to make a choice.
Yeah. Brother, I mean, thank you so much, man. The conversation has been amazing. I like to ask before we start signing off. It's if you were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self, what would you tell that little Omar?
If I saw, I'm trying to think of 17-year-old Omar.
And I go back to 17 because
Well,
that's
I was a senior in high school when I was 17. You know, as far as what I would tell him is, you know, just don't be afraid. You know, just don't be afraid, like, of life, of living, right? People are just afraid of, like, life, right? Of living and making choices. And guess what? It's not always going to go your way.
Yeah.
Right? It's not always going to go your way. So what I would tell a 17-year-old Omar is keep not feeling sorry for yourself and don't be afraid. Just don't be afraid. And it would be very basic to those things because I think those speak to allowing yourself to be able to take opportunities, right? And because you're not afraid of, like, I'm just not afraid of failing. Yeah. Right? I'm just not. Never. You know, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm going to die? Like, shit.
I win?
Well, fuck, you know? Like, there's usually solutions for just about everything, right? Yeah. And that's the other thing, too, is, like, you know, always being solutions-based, right? Like, something fucked up happens, it's like, okay, well, how do we fix it? Can we fix it? What do we do? And, you know, you try to move on, right?
I love it. Omar, if somebody wants to reach out and get a hold of you, maybe find out a little bit more about the brokerage and you know, where's the best place to reach you at?
The best place to reach us at is realestaternextgen.com, realestaternextgen.com, or xgreal.com. One of the two, xgreal.com, realestaternextgen.com. We're on all the social medias, of course. And
what's your handle? IG
Omar
handle?
Space, or with that little line underneath. It's not Omar space line Robles. Omar. So just Omar space underscore. Right? It's an underscore. Yeah. Omar underscore Robles.
Boom.
Boom.
Omar underscore underscore.
Hablo español, so
hablamos español.
Yep.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing all that stuff, and and it's been a blast, brother.
Oh, appreciate it. I did get the memo for the black shirt. Yeah. This is kind of my original garb, anyways. You know, it's just good. You know?
Boom. Right. It's a wrap.